Okay, there's a lot of you here. We have an hour with our guests. I'm going to open it up with a question to each of them, and then we have a Ben on the roving mic. So if you have a question, put your hand in the air. We'll get as many questions in as possible to our guests within the time that we have. None of my questions will be original. You've heard them all before. Tobin, I wanted to ask you, when you originally got the part in the first movie, it seemed to be primarily a voice role, and then the big reveal at the end, the sting in the tail. So what were you offered when you were offered the part, and what was it that you thought that you could bring to something that was primarily off camera? This is really echoey, by the way. Can we bring it down a bit?
Can you hear in the back? Good. I was offered an opportunity to lie on a drafty floor for 18 days in Los Angeles, an opportunity to work with Danny Glover, who I had never worked with and was looking forward to working with. And when I read the script, I did not anticipate the ending. So I figured if I didn't anticipate the ending reading the script, that if they shot it well, that the viewers wouldn't anticipate the ending either. And they did shoot it well, and the viewers didn't anticipate the ending. So you don't get many opportunities to be part of a moment in film that makes the kind of impact that that moment made. So I was hoping that it would be well done, and it was.
And Shawnee, for you, was there any indication at all that your character would evolve in the way that it did through the movies? Or were you offered one film and then the others followed? You weren't offered one film and then a sequel in a deal?
Yeah, it was just... are the monitor speakers on?
We can
Hello?
Hear, we can
Oh,
hear you.
that's a little better, yeah. It was very echoey, hard to hear up here. But you guys can hear out there, right? Woo! Yeah, that's better. Thank you. Ta! Yeah, I was offered, it was like one day of work on the first Saw movie, but I knew that I didn't die. I knew I was the only one that lived. So that was promising. There was at least some kind of, as opposed to the end of Saw 3, there was still, an open door depending on how it did, but nobody knew where it would go, if it would go, because you just never know until it gets out there and the people cast their vote. Thank God y'all said yeah.
And for you, Costas, for those of you that were here yesterday, some of these questions will be repeated, but for those of you who are new, it's new. I asked you whether you'd seen the previous movies when you were offered the role of Hoffman, and you said you hadn't, so it was entirely new to you.
Yes, I had not seen the movies, but I had heard of their success, so 1 and 2. And when I was invited in to meet the director, I had no idea what would happen, but I was invited in, I was introduced, and I had no idea what would happen after that. But in the Saw world, if you are dedicated and behave yourself, you may live to do the second movie. I ended up doing a few. So I was very grateful and privileged to have met these two. And I was part of something that goes down in cinematic history. And looking at you all here makes me feel great to be a part of it. Thank you for being here. Give yourselves a round of applause.
Okay, so I'm going to open it up to you guys. We've got Ben with the running mic here. So hands in the air, please, and off we go.
Hello.
Hi, I'm just wondering if you had like a favorite trap
That's
from
better.
the series.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, say again.
We're excited that we can hear you.
I'm just wondering if you had a favorite trap from the series as a whole, whether that means a trap that you would have survived or one that you loved the concept of. Like, do you have a favorite trap from the franchise?
I've been thinking a lot lately about the trap that FBI agent Straum ended up in. It's a box of water that fits down over his head, and they used a pen he used a pen to do a tracheotomy on his throat. I thought that was a very creative trap, and watching that scene and the actor who played Agent Straum, watching how they did that scene and watching the special effects guys and the stunt coordinators and watching the actor himself and how daunting that trap was for him was fascinating.
I thought when they eviscerated the pig carcasses, the guy was chained to the floor. That was pretty inventive and disgusting.
There are so many wonderful traps, and I just selfishly tell you that my favorite was the one that I was in, that Jill put me in, that I escaped from, and that's why it's my favorite, because I got to live and carry on the legacy, so to speak.
Hello. I just wondered, out of every Saw movie, which was each of your favourites and why to film?
I liked Saw 2 and 3. I liked 2 because you got to see inside John's brain a little more than you did in 1. And I liked 3 because of his relationship with Amanda.
I liked 3 because I get to work with him the most. And I thought their relationship was pretty interesting and inspirational until took a tragic turn. But it's a love story. Really, who doesn't like a good love story with some awful traps?
These people don't show off, but how good were they in 3? Can you let them know? Thank you. They worked their asses off and they cared. I liked 5 because of the lessons that were thrust upon me by Jigsaw. If you remember that scene where he had me with the shotgun to my throat, I just found Tobin to be so dedicated and caring about the work, and something was born that day for me personally, with him, but also in the franchise. We saw his pain when she miscarries, and something to do with my sister, so I kind of like the background in those storylines.
Hello. If a trap was designed for you to learn a lesson, what would the trap be?
Are you looking at me or them?
Any of you.
I think I'll let Amanda go
Something I
first.
could eat my way out of.
See how clever she is? Something she could eat her way out of.
Did we answer? We didn't.
Only one.
All right. For me, and maybe you can relate to this if you're Man U or Liverpool fans, but I'd be in a trap where the New York Yankees cannot touch the opposing pitcher. They fall into that every once in a while, and when they do, it's a powerless, horrid feeling. So that's how much of a sports fan I am. just kind of take that and move it to Man U or to Arsenal or to Liverpool when they just can't. You have those games, you know, when nothing goes right. It would be something like that, some sort of frustrating trap.
Yeah, Tobin. Oh gosh, I agree with that as an Everton fan because we haven't won anything in about 26 years. So I'm getting it, man. I appreciate it. Is our next question.
I've got an Everton hoodie at my house. It's gone through all 3 kids, but I can still wear it because I'm just shrinking now. But actually, speaking of traps, it just occurred to me, I think, like, kids are the best trap. Really.
Hello, everybody. Quick question for you. If there was anything across the franchise of movies you could go back and change, what would you go back and change if you could?
Well, in which movies? The first.
In any of them, if you had a choice to, you had a time machine and you could go back and go, I wouldn't mind changing that storyline a bit or changing the outcome of that film. Would you go back and change anything from across the movies?
I can tell you that the producers have told me they would have altered what they did in Saw 3. They wish they had not gone that route, but they had a particular script and they thought they were going to stop, and they didn't stop. So when you develop something like this, you always want to give yourself someplace to go, and the people that create Saw might have taken a different route with Saw 3 than they did.
Is anyone going to throw their hand up? Oh, there you go. It's all good.
This is going to sound really weird. Do you agree or disagree with Jigsaw's philosophy that some people don't appreciate their lives, even if you wouldn't use his methods? Do you think extreme forms of therapy work on people who are struggling with self-destructive behavior?
Wow. Well, yes, I do. I believe in quantum physics, and molecules move within the body, and the brain move in very random ways, and incoming can change the way that works. And so do I think that extreme forms of therapy? Yes, I do think that. Obviously, they have to be in the hands of someone who knows what they're doing. And I wouldn't necessarily, Tobin wouldn't necessarily approach things as John Kramer does. But the thing I can say about him is that he doesn't make the mistake that most of us make, which is that we complain a lot about things and do nothing. And he doesn't do that. He has a point of view and an approach, and whether you agree with him or you don't, well, that's up to you to decide, not me. I just play him and become him.
I think that, like, none of us appreciate. I mean, I'm at home with my kids every day, and you know, you get annoyed with each other, and then I get on a plane to go to Manchester, and it's like just getting the idea of leaving them and getting on the plane. It's like I appreciate, you know, that's nerve-wracking. Then I have that thought of, why isn't every moment of every day like that, you know, like, because you never know. And so, like, if you read about the, like, monks, they they are contemplating their death, praying for the dead, contemplating their death. Sometimes, they have the casket out, they're looking great, because they always want that present in their mind, the reality of that. Whereas most of the time, we just kind of going around in this delusion like, it's never going to end, I'm not bringing anything down here and shamrocking us all, but it just blows my mind in those moments where I go, why don't we appreciate? There's so much to appreciate. And we go around like complaining and bickering and arguing. It's like, it's insane.
If I can add one thing, I've recently learned that we do take things for granted, we forget. But if you learn to forgive, it leads you to getting rid of your anger. And if you can truly forgive and get rid of your anger, you can live a life a little bit more clearly and peacefully and not take things for granted. I believe that's a true thing that people can practice.
That's a pretty radical therapy. Forgive somebody.
You might avoid you might avoid therapy if you forgive and get rid of your anger. It might stop you from visiting too many doctors if possible. But you've got to mean it.
Hey, my question's for Tobin. How was it to get in the mindset of John Kramer? Like, was it method acting or was it a bit more to it?
It's a combination of different things. But the first thing that comes to my mind is that John is a very technical guy. He's a mechanical engineer by training. He's studies philosophy and theology, and he's interested in music and Shakespeare, and he just has a host of interests. But mostly he's a very technical guy, so I approach him very technically. I frankly, that's what I do, and I approach him the same way I do any character. I ask myself a whole lot of questions about what does he mean by what he says. And if I were going to say that myself in my own words, how would I say it? So yeah, there's some method approach to what I do, but do I take him home with me? No. But the first thing that comes to my mind is he's a technical guy, and he analyzes things in a very clinical, technical way, and so do I.
Can I follow up on that? When you evolve the character over several movies, how much of that is Tobin, the actor? How much of it is on the page? And how much of it is brought to you in collaboration with your director?
It's largely a collaboration. We get a script, and sometimes the script is incomplete, and sometimes between the directors and the producers and the actors, we go over the material and we say, no. So writers often can tell you where they want to go, but they don't quite know how to get there. So it's up to the actors to find a way that is more natural and more real, makes something feel like it's happening for the first time. So it is definitely a collaboration. That's what film is. It's a team effort, and the Saw films have definitely been that. The producers have been very wise to let go and let the actors help bring out the human side of the characters. Because in the midst of all of the pain and suffering and violence and all of that, in the absence of understanding where the people are coming from, or being able to relate to that, it's a vacuous experience.
Just got a question over this side.
Hello there. I was just wondering, the films, there's a lot of different scenes, there's a lot of like quite horrific stuff that goes in. Is there any time you get to a scene and think, I can't physically do this, or I don't have the mental kind of willpower to get through the scene?
About a week before you film the needle pit scene, you have that conversation. That was the hardest part of that scene, was like the week before, 2 weeks before, the day before. Once I was in there, I was fine. Yeah.
As far as seeing, personally, that was really hard to watch and obviously hard to do. But I think that we're in a position where I think of it like this: it doesn't matter what I think, it doesn't matter what I feel. I have to attack the problem and get it done. So whatever it takes.
Can I ask you, Tobin, do you in any way admire John Kramer as a persona, as a character, or is it so far beyond what any of us can or should admire that it's kind of off the grid?
I admire two things about him. I admire his skill as an architect and as a mechanical engineer. And his commitment.
Ben?
Yeah, we just got a question.
If you could be friends with any other horror movie villain, who would it be and why?
Can you just repeat that? Sorry.
If you could be friends with any other horror movie villain, who would it be and why?
Did you get that? If you could be friends with any other horror movie villain, who would it be and why?
I think of Bela Lugosi as the original Dracula. I just found him to be an intriguing man. I'd love to hang out with him and see what he was doing and thinking and feel a bit of his magic.
I would be friends with Robert Englund because I've met him a couple of times and he's a swell guy. But I have not seen him as Freddy. But I like Robert a lot.
I've got a drawing for Tobin. Will I be able to give it to him? I've got a drawing.
She's done Tobin a drawing of I'll pass it over.
I remember when I was very little, I saw some movie. I was the youngest, so there was always inappropriate stuff on the TV. And there was some old horror movie with chopped off heads flying around the house. It scared the crap out of me. And I had recurring nightmares. Aw, that's lovely. Very good.
Nice work.
And the very last nightmare I had of them, they were throwing me a birthday party. So I made friends with them and reconciled it, and I wasn't tormented anymore, but that lasted for a while. So I was happy to make friends with them. The severed heads floating about.
One of the questions that one of the questions that actors who have had a success in horror movies are asked is whether they're horror fans. So whether they grew up watching horror movies, did they read Edgar Allan Poe, Stephen King, whatever it might be. And if they did, does that have a bearing on the work that they're doing? Or is it entirely separate from
God, I
doing
was
the day job?
tormented because I was the youngest. So there was like The Exorcist, there was the Amityville Horror, there was, I mean, like during the time where the scariest movie, Halloween, Friday the 13th, all that stuff, and I was just little. So now I don't like to be scared. Like I get mad when I get scared. Probably because I was so traumatized little by those. I mean, those were scary movies.
The Wicked Witch of the West made a very big impression on me in the film The Wizard of Oz. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and those flying munchkins. So I'm dating myself. She's talking about the 80s and the 70s, and I'm talking about the 50s and 60s. But without a scary person in a film, the film kind of be lopsided. So I particularly liked her. I thought she did an amazing job.
I remember a movie called The Fearless Vampire Killers. Does anybody remember that film? And I remember there was a scene in the middle of the night where all the vampires started coming out of their graves. And some people up in the castle were looking at them, and it was eerie and crazy. And some of the women had negligees on, I remember. And I was confused. Am I supposed to be scared, or do I want to join this party at 12 years of age? But that movie, I remember, was really creepy and weird and kind of sexy and scary at the same time. Therapy.
Hi. Nice to meet you and thanks for coming. Do you have any behind the scene funny moments to share, please?
I tormented the director, Darren Bousman. He had this thing about boiled eggs, and he was really kind of stuck up about it, like, no boiled eggs on the set. I said, you spoiled brat. I got a bunch of boiled eggs, and I crushed them up, and I stuck them, and we have, like, director's chairs, you sit on, and they have little side pouches. Well, I smashed it way down low in the side pouch, so it's over days. He's like, where's that smell? I smell it. I said, Darren, there's no eggs on the set. You're so, like, pushy. You won't allow it. I smell it. I know. He finally discovered him. It's pretty good. Tormenting Darren Bousman is pretty fun.
We were asked before whether the script evolves over time. I had never met Donnie Wahlberg before, and we had 8 days, 9 days before we actually had to shoot those scenes in Saw 2. I had all my scenes were with him in Saw 2. And so a little behind the scenes moment, we go over we meet on the set, on the Saw 2 set. And we are looking at the script together, trying to explore it. And we go through the first few lines, and Donnie looks at me and he says, I'd never fucking say that. And I'd say, all right, well, what would you say? And he'd say, I'd say, fuck you. I'd say, all right, so let's start there. And so that's how Saw 2 developed. We were concerned in Saw 2 that the studio, Lionsgate, would not be excited about the fact that all my part and Donnie's part revolved about two guys talking across a table. That's not very scary. But we were able to develop dialogue in such a way that there was a lot of tension going on between us. And that was all that was necessary.
Those scenes are awesome.
Hi there. If you could recast yourself as a different character in the Saw franchise, who would you be and why?
Recast? If I could recast myself? Oh, hell no. I wouldn't be anyone else. Would you?
I
Would
wouldn't
you?
want to be anyone else, but you know what? To live in Jigsaw's body for a day would be cool.
It would be fun to be in Amanda's body for a day.
What about the excitement? When... Get a room. When you're
Everybody got hot on stage.
Oh, hang on. Here we go. You can use that. There you go. Use that. When you've completed one film and you don't know
Things
whether...
might have gotten complicated had we lived. Clearly.
When you've completed one film and you don't know whether you're going to be in the next film, are you excited when you're contracted, thinking about Hoffman here, to see where the character's going to go? Because you stop at a given point, the writers go away, they work on the script, they evolve the character, for all of you really, they evolve the character. When that script lands on your doormat and you're reading it for the first time, are you as excited as all of us to know where you're going to go?
It's pretty exciting, yeah. I'd say, yeah.
They were always very secretive and protective of their script, and I appreciated that. So it was always a big surprise for us as well. So I'm glad that you got a kick out of it and got surprised also.
Also, by a certain point in the development of the franchise, the writers, producers knew that once they parted with that script, that it was going to get changed and refined and tightened up by the actors. And so, yeah, that process is always a very marvelously creative time. We were very lucky to be working with a team that recognized the necessity of doing that.
And it was kind of good to have the confines of the time limit, right? Because every Halloween there'd be a new, so you didn't have time to like think about it all too much. You had to the scene, you had to make it happen. Everybody did. And it's usually more freedom within the confines than having all the time and all the money, kind of simplifies the process.
And do you get any opportunity at all to bring yourselves to it, to improvise, to change lines, to rewrite, to alter?
Oh, we do a lot of that in these.
So how much is the chemistry on the set with the actors working together?
Movie. Pretty critical, I'd say. It was a big part of the process of 2 and 3 for sure.
It's very hard for writers to kill their babies. They get to liking certain things. And so when artists come in and change that, it's difficult for them. And writing is a very, very difficult, and I have great respect and admiration for writers because every kind of writer, including copywriters for advertising, it's a very delicate skill. And so when people come in and want to change what you've done, hopefully they have a better idea. And it's a great writer who can go, that's better. Let's do that.
Hi guys, so following on from that question, at the end of Saw 3, did you know that, do you plan ahead the scenes? So straight after Saw 3 finished filming, did you jump into the scene and go straight into number 4 and film scenes for the 4th one as a potential pickup in case the movie went to a 4th film? Do you get what I mean? So when Saw 3 finished and...
Yeah.
I think, didn't they film some of Saw 4 at the end of Saw 3?
Yeah, so do you continue the film afterwards as a pickup for the next film? So you film them scenes?
Didn't you film scenes for 4 at the end of 3?
I think when they had the sick room set up in Saw 3, and I was on the gurney, I feel like they had you come in at some point because I think largely because they weren't sure if they were going to rebuild that set again. And so I think they brought Detective Hoffman in the moments after, when they discover the crime scene. And I think they brought Costas in at that point.
Yeah, good question. I think you're right. And they have the choices to bring things from before and after and slip them in at places to sort of join things up. So I think you're right, though. There was a few moments.
But the larger answer to your question is no, because these guys, the people who produce these films, generally did not know where they were going. They wanted to see how the audience related to the existing film before they made any decisions about what they were going to do in the next film. They may have been thinking about budget. They may have been thinking about if they did do another one, location, but I don't think in terms of, they didn't shoot things previously because they didn't know what they were going to do. And until the audience related to the film and they had some sense of how fans felt, they didn't do anything that moved us forward.
Hi, I just wanted to ask how you all got along during day-to-day filming. Was there any personality clashes? Did you all get along?
Our sets were pretty delightfully free. There's usually that one person, I've worked with great people. I've been super lucky, but many times it just takes one kind of jerk off to throw but I don't remember any of those. You could kind of tell when we come to these things, we have a ball together.
It was pretty harmonious environment, to be honest with you. And I can tell you something else. There are films that get made that have horrible fights and relationships on set. And it's well known that people didn't get along, and people were at loggerheads about all kinds of things, and the films are wonderful. The result is wonderful. And then there are other films that are extremely harmonious, and everyone loves each other, and the ultimate product is crap. So because you have a nice harmonious environment does not necessarily mean you're going to get a good product.
It's just a better day at work.
We've got about 5 minutes left, so if there's anyone got any questions, please throw your hands up now. I'll come back.
Going a last one. For all of you, what was the moment when the penny dropped and you realized that the first film, was morphing into something bigger, and the Jigsaw character, the John Kramer character, was becoming, you mentioned Robert Englund, it was becoming a Freddy Krueger, it was becoming a Jason, it was becoming a Michael Myers. Tobin, for you, when did that awareness happen?
I still don't think of anything to do with that. By that I mean becoming Michael Myers, or what some people refer to as a horror icon. That all happens out there somewhere. That's not what we do. What we do is on the set, in the moments, and the rest of that takes place out in the world. And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. But we continue to do what we do, which is approach every role with as much enthusiasm as we can, and try to continue to be as creative as we can. That's in answer to the part of your question that talks about Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger and Jigsaw and all of that. That happens on another planet from me. And I always knew that John Kramer was lying on the floor in Saw 1 in the middle of two guys. And so he was kind of a fulcrum to a seesaw. He was physically located in the middle. And Saw 1 was kind of a Waiting for Godot story about three guys locked in a room. And John was in the middle. He was silent until he got up, but he was in the middle. And then Saw 1 opened up and it did very well. And I was in the Czech Republic doing a television series, and I got the script for Saw 2. And I was like, okay, good. Now I can do some of what I suggested to James Wan when I first met him, which is we got to know what's going on inside this guy's head. So that's when we began to develop Saw 2, and when we knew that, but none of us, I don't think, knew it was going to become 3 and 4 and 5 and all of that.
And we just got a literature lesson. That was awesome.
We're literally running out of time, so this will be our last question.
Oh, I feel very privileged. This is a really serious question. Do you have a
I don't
favorite...
believe you.
I know, it's not really. What is your favorite British food or drink that you can't get back in the States?
My ex-husband loved Marmite.
Marmite.
And I saw it, and it's in the hotel, and I says, oh, I remember that stuff tastes awful. And I tasted it again. Oh, it tastes awful. But it was like his childhood. Marmite.
Marmite traps.
Marmite traps.
My mom was from Twickenham. She was raised there, and she brought Marmite to the States with her, and it used to end up on my bread and butter all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm familiar with Marmite.
There's something in it that mothers feel good about giving their kids, maybe iron or something. Yeah. It tastes very irony.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love chips and curry at 3 a.m. in Liverpool. Out
Yeah.
in the streets. With all the half-naked women, no coats, nothing, so tough.
Okay. We have to leave it there. What we tend to do, we ask our guests if they'll indulge us to do an on-stage selfie. So if you'll do it, if you want to be in the selfie, you need to get to the front of the stage and we'll try it. Ben, do you want to do it? Because I'm rubbish.
Can I say one thing, please? Everybody, you're very well behaved. So audience are very smart, but very quiet. Can everybody in unison, just one time at the count of 3, say, game over for us? Yes? All together, scream it, please. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Game over! That felt good. Woo!
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.